Okay, it's 6:15 on Tuesday, April 11th. Calling the Finance Committee meeting to order. First thing on the agenda is the minutes from April 6th.
I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes of April 6th.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I didn't see anything.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Okay, now it's back to budget discussions.
I saw a letter through the town administrator's office from our legal counsel. What's everybody's opinion of that?
I haven't seen it, so could you just,
Here.
oh, thank you.
We could also ask the town administrator what his opinion is.
Which one was this in regards to?
This is on the fact that the town council believes thought we were going to have 3 iterations, and now that we only have the one going forward, if it doesn't pass, the town would have a budget.
Yeah, okay. I did read that.
I think they were okay with 2, right? Don't have to have 3, they're okay with 2, but again, like you said, more important that if it doesn't pass, the first 2.5, then you have no working budget, so you have to have another special town meeting for the budget.
Right,
Okay.
which is what we had discussed last week. I'm asking what everyone's opinion, Darren's asking what everyone's opinion is.
Kind of knew that, but
So we've got the full budget, which would require the override.
Mhm.
We are not going to be presenting a budget with use of the reserve funds, the stabilization funds. So we would have 2 budgets that we're bringing forward. One that is the full budget with the override, and one with all of the draconian cuts.
If we get there, yep.
I like that word, draconian.
Well, so
Yep.
that's all we have.
I know, I
I
agree.
mean, we can't do anything else. We can't do. It's not likely, even as Seth was saying the last week, it's not likely that we're going to get stabilization utilization. It's
Stabilization utilization kicks the can down the road
Right.
1 year. That's it. It's one-time funds. So that just means you start with that structural deficit. So-
and you're using money that could be used for one-time things.
Right.
So all of that will be said on the floor, and I don't think it'll get out of town meeting. So that's the case. We've got 2 budgets. The one that utilizes and the one that utilizes the override, and the one that doesn't. So we just need to come up with the numbers that need to be for that big cut budget.
I think that, and why I brought it up is, I know what we said last week, and everybody, it was getting late, and we were a little bit tired, but I think that if we go forward with only one budget, what kind of example are we setting that? Here we are, we're saying we got no money, and now we're gonna do another town meeting. So, that's my thought.
Well,
That's a
so
point.
let's play that out. So let's just go ahead and we say stabilization, $2 million. Give me $2 million in it. Not me, but let's just say give us $2 million, and we'll go ahead and we'll make everything right and the town operate correctly. And the town says no, I'm not going to do that. All right, too much in taxes, going to have it. So we present the other one that says, okay, then we're going to cut these things that we need to get down to where we need to be, and that fails. Now we don't have a budget at that point.
But we've done our job and presented 2 budgets.
We have, so
Yeah, but
I
you're
guess
saying it's
we're
gonna
at
be out
that
of the town
point.
meeting
Town meeting
anyway.
So we're at the town meeting and we're at 112 budgets. But that
We wouldn't be at 1/12 until July 1st.
First.
And
No, no,
between the 6th of May and the end of June, we could schedule another town meeting.
That would get us where?
I don't know.
Right.
That's the thing, but we could schedule one, so
But everything is a big if, no matter what we do.
Right.
They're both big ifs.
Right. So, I just think we need to,
I know last week when I said we should just bring the 2.5 forward, my thought process was, this is really the only shot we have of having any money to run the town.
Yes.
The cuts are gonna be so horrific if we don't pass it, that,
We're basically saying that the override is what we support and we don't support anything else.
Right.
As a committee, we're not supporting anything but the override, which I think is how we all feel.
Yeah.
Well, so our process is that we would recommend and not recommend. So for the budget that we present that would require the override, we would recommend the town approve that. For the budget that cuts, I would think that it would be the finance committee to recommend that the town not approve that.
So if it goes down at the town meeting, how could we do that?
How could we do it?
if what
If
you,
the first override, but say the override part of this process goes down at the town meeting, gets voted down, how can we say that?
How can we say we don't?
We don't have it, so we're just gonna say we're giving up, we're done?
No, I'm just saying, I think what we're saying is, well, so I don't know how to parse that, but.
How do you word it? Here's the budget we recommend with
Right.
the override. Here's the budget we did because it's our job. We did it because we had to, but it's gonna decimate the town.
if the 2.5 doesn't pass,
Right.
then that's exactly what would happen. However, that was the reason why I said just put the one budget down to say, this is the only one that's going to allow us to have a town government.
But I've also gotten my ear burned off this past weekend by people in town, not just one person, several people in town, 3 or 4 called and said, hey, you guys aren't gonna tell us what the other numbers are? And now that has gotten out into the public that they're only doing one budget, da-da-da. So
Let's concentrate on getting to the bottom of the 218
Well,
tonight.
there you
We'll put
Yeah,
both.
we
That's
can
it.
publicize it, and we can publicize the fact that there's still, with all these cuts, there's still a $218,000. But it doesn't mean we have to bring it to
Right.
a town hall, but we can publicize it on the website.
We can still say all these cuts, and we still have to
And we
find
still-
218,000.
Yeah. So that shows the cuts, that shows where the money is going and where the cuts are, but it still says we don't support that.
So,
Right.
So you're saying present it the way we have it now, and there's still an additional
Well, present it.
$218,000.
we
the
would
website.
show it only as a 2.5. That's all we bring to the floor, is a 2.5.
For the town hall.
For the
Town
town meeting. And then we can just have ready to go all the cuts, plus we have 218,000 still left to go. Now,
But I think people want to, am I missing something? Because people want to see it ahead of time.
well, we can then
Yeah, we
put it up on,
put it up on
but
the-
say, okay, but look at, this is where we're at, these are
Yeah.
all the cuts, and we're still looking for almost $219,000.
So we got it right now. I mean, the number right now that we have is $25,726,453.83. That's the budget with the cuts. But that budget is still $218,783 short.
And
So-
there will be more.
And it will have to be more. And so I don't know how we want to be able to structure that, but we can present or provide data on what the cuts would be.
And we're still working on the
Right.
worst cut scenario, which is the next
Because we have
218.
to.
So, I know, I sent Gary an email yesterday regarding the assistant town clerk's job. It's posted. It's posted as a 28-hour benefited position. Shouldn't we hold off on that until after the town meeting?
Yeah, I think what we should do is we're trying to get someone appointed to be temporary, part-time assistant town clerk. So we just have to reach out, and see who's available and who'll take it. Because Candy's only here, for
Another
this
week.
weekend, next week?
She's out, yeah, at the end of this.
So,
Because that was my only thing is that we're putting it out there, we're saying it's a 28-hour benefit position.
it could very well not be.
And
So I hear you.
Right,
I hear
I
you.
mean, I was like, I think we're kind of, for a month, I mean, let's put it out there, because you don't want to hire somebody and then say, yeah,
Yeah,
sorry.
I didn't see the posting because
Yeah.
you've had me doing other crazy things.
I just,
Yeah, that's not fair to someone we would potentially hire.
Well,
And it doesn't
who
look
would
right.
accept that job?
I agree.
Well, they may not know.
That's true.
it
No,
says,
I mean,
Yeah.
I would think somebody's going to say, you want this job, you can have this job, but it's subject to
The
termination.
job posting clearly states it's a 28-hour benefited position.
And that's
And
great.
it's not gonna be a 28-hour benefited position if the 2.5 fails.
It
Well,
might not be a
it won't.
position.
So will it not exist? Will it not exist at all, Gary?
I think it got cut in half,
No, probably
right?
won't. If it doesn't, if the 2.5 doesn't,
Yeah.
it won't exist.
It won't exist. So somebody's going in, sitting down for an interview, I hope somebody's gonna be able to say to the person,
My whole thing is, why post it?
Yeah.
No,
It
no, I
shouldn't be
agree.
posted.
I agree, but if there's a legal requirement that it get done, that it gets posted by a particular point in time, no, nothing?
We didn't post his job for a year. Why do we have to hurry up and post it?
Yeah.
Come on, Ted, huh? You had to throw that in.
I'm sorry.
Well, I all along, we've been saying we wanna have different scenarios, 3 or 4 or 5 different scenarios. And if that's what everybody wants to do, I'll follow the group here, but now we're only gonna have one scenario, and that's an override. We're not doing anything else, and we're gonna go back to them with a, I think it just is the wrong precedence to set. But if that's the way everybody wants to go,
Why do you think that's the wrong precedence to set? I'm just,
because 3 or 4 weeks ago, we were gonna have 5 different scenarios.
yeah,
And now we're having one.
yeah.
Yeah, but then that was before we knew we were still off $200,000.
I think that's when we thought it was possible, frankly.
But that $200,000.
I mean, that
threw us over the
$200,000
edge.
really, these are like tremendously
Well, we've
devastating
already, I
cuts.
mean, just to get to that 200,000, we had to cut silly things.
Right.
I mean, a
Things that
thousand
we
here,
need.
1,500 here, 500 here. I mean,
We're cutting some major things that we need in the town,
Right.
and we have to cut much more. Go ahead.
So I'm pretty sure what I heard and what I voted on was the fact that we would bring one budget to the town meeting, and that was the override budget.
correct.
Right.
But that we were gonna spend tonight and 2 nights a week for the next however many weeks.
Right.
Coming up with those other 4
Exactly.
that you were talking about, one of which would probably include closing this building and the Council on Aging, what's been proposed in the past, or a budget that just goes through and says, everybody's gotta whack another whatever percentage
Total of
out
200,
of their thing. So that was our work that I think we put in front of us. One of the things that I've been wondering is, I don't remember the mechanics of an override at a town meeting, so that, believe the override needs to be approved at the town meeting, and then we go and vote on it 2 days later.
That is correct.
Right.
Now, is there a warrant article that is the override, or is every warrant article contingent on an override?
That any warrant article that is part of the budget will be contingent upon passing of the $2 million override.
So let's just say hypothetically, because he's here, we'll talk about fire. There's a fire budget contingent on the override, and that gets shot down. Just fire. Well, is fire on its own?
No.
No.
No, it's that whole set of things, right?
It's the-
Municipal
So
government.
let's just say any one of those warrant articles contingent on an override gets shot down. That essentially means town meeting shoots down the override? And we might as well just pack it in for the night and have another one?
Well, I mean, so there's other articles on the warrant that probably would need to be able to be addressed. And I would think that we go through that whole warrant.
Well,
Special-
maybe I'm just really talking about the money ones that are contingent on
Okay.
the override.
Okay.
If one of them gets shot down, I'm assuming they're all shot down?
I don't know.
You mean the next iteration?
No,
No,
we're talking
no,
the
no,
warrant
no.
articles.
I'm just
Right
talking
now,
about what might happen
We
at
did
town
one
meeting.
budget with all the warrant articles. If one of the budget articles fails, does that mean the whole 2.5 override has failed?
Because it gets separated between like school funding, municipal
Municipal
government
government.
Well,
funding.
so where is it? Someplace in here it says, school system, no.
Yeah, school
Town-
system.
school
system.
School system is in there, that is a
Right.
contingent on the budget.
So what it says,
Where's the one, Peter, for 2.5?
well, so,
It's there in all of the articles,
Right.
they're all
So it's
contingent.
not- Okay.
No, it's all
So
contingent.
this is Article 4 is one article. It says, see if the town will vote to raise such sums of money as may be necessary to defray the expenses of the municipal departments for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2023, and determine whether the town will appropriate money therefore to be provided by taxation or appropriation from available funds thereto, and determine whether said appropriation or any portion thereof shall be contingent upon passage of a Proposition 2.5 ballot referendum question or take any action there. So this Article 4, has the wording.
As does the school budget.
And I don't think the school budget does, and it's not on the warrant. I don't see it.
It better, because it was all supposed to be included. The whole budget is,
That's the only one.
There's a couple school ones in there, though.
Yeah, but in any of them, I was
It's
looking,
not on there.
I didn't see it. I mean.
You're right,
I
it's
think it
not on
was-
there.
I think Lyndon made the point that there's
yeah,
a.
we have to have it all. It's
good timing.
not on
Well,
all of them.
welcome. We're not talking about you or anything. But Linda made the point that, skin in the game. And so I think the articles, the school articles, now, I don't know to the extent to which we can go, because we were saying, we can't affect the minimal contribution, but can we say in there?
It should say still, because it's contingent upon the passing of a 2.5 override.
Okay, so,
That's not mentioned in the article you just read?
It is on municipal government, but not on school, not on the debt service assessment, not on the transportation assessment.
I
It
thought the
should be,
attorney looked at all that.
attorney can only,
Well, I don't know if the attorney's read that yet.
because this is a draft, this is purely a draft.
Did
So-
we get 2 drafts?
I don't know. Well, you gotta make sure. I didn't look at these carefully enough.
No, that's my homework.
Okay, I'll make sure first thing in the morning, that's all I can do.
Yeah,
just-
because every article that has to do with the budget has to be contingent upon a 2.5 override.
So that says that if those articles, I suspect, if any one of those articles fail, if they don't agree to do it based upon, contingent upon 2.5 override, then the others are moot at that point.
Well, because the number presented then is no longer valid, right?
The number presented.
So if it's
That's it.
moved to appropriate $500,000.
Right.
Based on an override, it may only be $400,000 without it, and if it doesn't pass contingent on the override,
Right.
then
Right.
So that essentially means we have to have a second budget
Yeah.
at the meeting.
Well, I mean, having the second budget.
No, all that means is that you don't have a budget.
I know, when you go through the lunch.
And then, no, you don't start at 1/12 until July
No, the first-
1st.
no,
So
I
we could
understand.
have another meeting with the worst case scenario.
We're-
It means that if you do not pass this one, the thing is, this is how we sell it. In my opinion, this is how we sell it, that this is the only way to run a government. Because if we go to this other one, we're not running a government.
So last week, we decided to go that route.
Yep.
Right.
I think the select board was on, I don't know if they had to vote about it or not, but we certainly did. We were gonna go that route.
Yep.
And we then need to be prepared in the event that that doesn't come through for a special town meeting to happen sometime before July 1st.
Right.
Where we would hash out
Do all
one
the
of the
horrific
other,
cuts.
of the other budgets. But we gotta do the horrific cuts
We got to
well before that.
Yeah.
That needs to happen ASAP.
I
right?
That's
agree.
what we're doing.
Okay.
But I
So-
don't think we were planning on having that finalized for the town meeting.
Right.
Well, I think
If
what Alex was just saying was that, if we can get as close to we think of what that is, we can at least
Show
start
people.
to say, this is what we're looking at with additional pain of the 200 or whatever we.
But that means that it's not 2 budgets. What we're saying
Right.
is, if you don't pass this, you're gonna have to come back to another meeting, versus if we balance it, we say, this is the budget, and if you don't pass this one, we go to column B.
But I think some of what Darren was talking about, some of the criticism was, well, people won't get a clear picture of what the pain is if we're just going with the override, which is,
Right, we could put together a listing of the things that we're gonna lose.
now, when we say we post that online, do we post that at the FinCom's page? Does that go on the TA page? Where do we do
The
that?
front page.
Yeah,
The front page.
put on every one.
And,
We
yeah.
can do that? Put it on the front page?
Can we put it
Yeah,
everywhere?
the one that she sent us on Monday after she talked with the
website.
lawyer only has municipal government tied to the 2.5 override.
Okay.
So,
That's a problem.
as a group, everybody read the lawyer's opinion. I know it's an opinion, but are we gonna go against her opinion? And if we are, we need to discuss that. Because her opinion said she thinks we should come in with 2. If you guys don't wanna do that, so we'll have a vote but
Because what Lauren is telling us is we would not have a budget at the end of that town meeting. If it does not pass, we would not have a budget. That is a correct statement.
isn't that our charge?
Yes.
Yes,
To have a budget?
yes.
All
It
right,
doesn't
so
say
we're
how
gonna
many
say-
meetings it has to take to us to get
Yeah.
it.
But it says at the town meeting,
So,
our charge.
so Dan,
So then we're gonna have another town meeting to do what we should have done in the first one.
yeah, but
Okay.
you're
Then-
making the assumption that that
I'm just,
budget.
it's discussion, don't get
No.
If
upset.
everybody
No,
wants to do this, then that's fine, but we've got $218,000 to cut from the budget. Are we prepared to do that this evening?
I would like to talk about it without getting lectured, and I would like to talk about it as a group, and we all come up with what we wanna do, Karen.
Okay.
So my only question is, how many budgets do we have to prepare before we feel that we're going to get the town meeting to agree? We have the 2.5 override, and we have these draconian cuts. How do we know the draconian cuts would even pass? I mean, I've talked to people over the weekend.
Well,
And-
I mean,
and
we
their
have to do the
particular
best we
opinion
can.
is, cut. Everything has to go. Cut. You know, so there's a lot of those kinds of folks out there that are really pushing for, let's be drastic. Let's make sure that we're getting this down to where nobody's getting a tax increase. So, how many budgets do we need to be able to come up with? I mean, I understand what you're saying. And if that's the case, we've got to come up with, what, 218,000? Maybe we should be cutting 500,000 beyond where we are to be assured of a budget out of the town meeting. I don't know how to do that. I know what we have. We have 2.5. We have cuts that we made to get at this point. We have another 218 to come to. And we can do the math to make that happen. So we'll have 3 budgets,
Well,
in essence.
it's a group here.
Actually, 2.
It's.
Why
this-
3?
Well, you're right, I have 2, because the 218,000 is cuts, but we still need to be able to make some. So we already have one that is a $25 million budget that doesn't have the $218,000 credit in it. So we need to get that $218,000 out, and that's our second budget. And that's what we go with.
So maybe we do that. We have the 2.5, the budget, the way we think it should be with the
Yeah.
override. Do our job, if that's what it is, and present that budget none of us think should happen.
Right.
But it's out there, and if the override doesn't pass, this is what you have, folks. We
Right.
don't agree with it, but this is what we've done.
Right, and so if they don't agree with it, and they don't vote for that, now we're going forward to,
We don't, what it is you pass this. If the override fails, you automatically default to column Y.
okay, so we can do that. So we can say, you have 2 numbers, you're gonna select one or the other.
If you don't pass the 2.5 override, you will end up with the finance committee budget with the cuts.
Well, let's just say that they're gonna agree to that. Because it's gonna be, it has to be a vote, right? Don't you have to go ahead and vote for the 25 million less than 218?
People, yeah.
Isn't that,
People could change, modify the budget of
Yeah.
the town meeting.
Yeah.
Well, we know. We need to-
But you can't plan for everything, so
Can't.
no, that's my point.
let's ignore that thought process
Oh,
for the time being,
please.
because we really.
If that happens, we're out of luck.
Yeah.
'cause-
We're already at
I
this
mean-
point, like, let's not think about, we can't deal with that right now.
I guess my
Can't do it
original
the what
question
ifs.
is,
You can't.
I don't care what we do as a committee. My thought is that we should all come up with an agreement which way we should go, based on what the town
do what the town's gonna do.
Yeah, but the lawyer for the town, our counsel, thought that it was the best if we had two. Now, we can either agree or disagree with that opinion, but we have to at least know where we're going with it, and that's all. And I don't want to get everybody fired up about it. I'm just trying to protect ourselves a little bit here because of what's going, with that we're going into. Not,
Okay, I just want to read what she said. She stated that if the entire budget is contingent on the override and it fails, then the town will be left with no budget. Which is what we knew last week. If it fails, we won't have a budget. We would have to call a special town meeting with the worst case scenario.
So, does that mean that we can't bring in a second budget?
No.
Well, so if the budget, if the warrant article states that the budget is contingent upon a 2.5 override, and it fails at the town meeting, fails at the town meeting, not at the ballot, but they don't agree to that at the town meeting, if we don't have a budget, how do we get them, where do we go with that at that point?
If we bring two budgets to the town meeting
Yeah,
and they don't want to pass the 2.5 override
Right.
on the floor,
right.
it automatically refers to the other one that's on the floor.
So the wording on the warrant has to be specific. There's a budget for a town, there's a budget for,
If the 2.5 doesn't pass, then we don't have the funds, so it automatically goes to the next one.
to be balanced.
Right, that's a balanced budget. So it'll be 2.5 override balance.
right,
And balanced budget.
minus 218, that's the balanced
Right,
budget.
right.
Okay,
So if you don't pass the 2.5 override, it automatically defaults to that other one.
Automatically, period.
Yeah.
So there's no vote on that.
No,
So there's no mention, again, I'm just asking the question of, do you
no.
stay?
Every time we've ever done an override vote, it's always been, it's this column. If the
Okay.
2.5 doesn't pass, it reverts to the next column. That's how we've done it in the
a choice
past.
of stabilization. So it's either this or that, period.
We're not presenting stabilization.
Just
I'm-
asking the
I'm
question.
not a fan of that, but that's me.
If I may?
Go ahead.
To be clear, I think you need an affirmative vote on a budget.
Yes.
A negative vote on a budget does not necessarily automatically confirm an affirmative vote on another. The way I would do it, the way I've seen it in other towns, they're separate articles. You have an override article, that fails, the next article would be this budget, with your separate column budget. You obviously present that in your warrant that you're presenting over the next couple of weeks. You let them know of their options. You let them know through recommendations and these public forums that the override is necessary. This is why we're looking for an override. This is your option if you don't pass the override. You need an affirmative vote.
I don't remember. I'd have to go back to see the year that we did the municipal government. If the 2.5 didn't pass, then that's when it automatically went to the other one.
DOR is looking for town meeting appropriations. I don't believe that they would see a negative vote. They would,
I don't know.
Yeah.
But I know in the past, we haven't had,
The way it's worked, Karen, is that people have passed it contingent on an override. It's
Right,
the override
right,
that
at the
doesn't
ballot,
pass,
right.
And then it defaults.
Defaults to the
because
other
it
one.
didn't pass.
Right. Passing it, I don't care. I'll do whatever anybody else wants. Go ahead.
Through the chair, I think what Austin's trying to get at is each section that we vote, general government, X number of dollars, so basically your 2.5 budget that we're gonna use is X number of dollars for general government. And what the difference from that to what the cuts are in general government, that's contingent on the override. And do that in each section. So each section goes down, and if they're equal, say the school, whether it's the override budget or the cut budget are equal, there's nothing tying that to an override for that section. But each, like debt services, we're gonna paying that whether we have an override or not, we're still paying the same debt service. So each individual one, so you voting, technically, you'd be voting each article, two separate budgets. One, the complete budget with an override passing, and if the override fails, you are deducting the difference, and that's your secondary budget for the entire town, failed budget.
so to be clear, I guess the article, the warrant right now doesn't have any numbers.
Right.
So I wasn't clear of how you typically present them with
If we
overrides.
have to
I think
do
they would say the
each
number
article.
and then contingent on an override.
Right.
And when the override doesn't pass, it falls back to whatever the difference is.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, make it clear, obviously,
But
you know, the
where,
states.
where would we have presented the fallback? Where is it in the warrant that would be?
Like Karen had said, typically it shows the column with what's in the override and what the other amounts are. If the override doesn't pass, that column's wiped out.
So this gets handed out, and this says you're voting on column
One would
U.
say, it would say 2.5 override
Right.
balanced budget.
Right.
And
And if that doesn't pass,
worst case scenario, don't bother.
and at the town meeting, if they approve that contingent upon the passing of the override, then it goes to the ballot on the following Tuesday. And if that fails, then it comes all the way out here to cuts.
But you're saying, Austin, that if it fails the 2.5 override on the town floor, we have to do each one of those as two different things?
Well, I think you present I think your warrant presentation is a little different from my experience in other towns. So for example, it's my understanding that you present sort of in blocks. It's a general government, public safety. Is that how it is presented here? So, in my opinion, in that case, like the chief was mentioning, I would have 2 columns, if you will. Override, and with the language contingent on override, the motion's made on the floor, this is the number, motion's made, voted on. If that fails, I still believe you need an affirmative vote on something.
Okay, I typically, in
Maybe two
the
votes,
history here,
right?
we've had positive results with passing an override on the town floor.
On the floor.
Ballot box, not so much.
Yeah, that doesn't seem to be a problem, it's the ballot
If
box.
you do it, through the chair, my problem would be if you do it separately and you have some contingent on an override and others not, it throws your whole budget off.
Yeah, but the problem comes in where, like Seth said, because we're paying the same amount to debt service regardless, it doesn't make a difference whether a 2.5 override
Your
passes.
override should only be contingent on things that you
That are
have
gonna
an
change.
option on. So, like, the contribution from the school should be contingent on override. The other one isn't because you have to pay
Right.
that.
Yeah.
The debt service should not be contingent on
Right.
override. So it should be specific to those.
But that's
But
not,
even if it's, we have no choice with the school, even if it doesn't pass.
sure we do.
Well, the other thing is, like, if we don't pass it, or if you put a number in there, like you put a certain amount that's gonna be contingent on an override, whatever you randomly choose, and another town it doesn't pass the school budget, they could actually take our lower number and take that as a acceptable
Favorable.
budget.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So they would have to lower it to our amount at that point.
If 2 towns voted for
Right.
it.
Well, if one just voted it down,
If two-
and
yeah,
we put
two
a
of them,
number in
right.
there, and they wanted to take our number so they didn't have to go back to a vote, then they could do that.
I don't have a clear understanding of this, well, how it all, how can we move forward with, I mean, does anyone in the room in this group have a clear understanding how this is gonna work?
Well, I thought I did last week, but I don't think I do
As
anymore.
long as the 2.5 override passes on the town floor, it's not a problem.
Right.
It's only if someone on the floor votes against the proposition 2.5, we have to have another warrant article for the worst case scenario.
So,
And if it's, is there,
And that would have to pass.
so here's my question. Can we do one warrant article for the budget?
Omnibus budget.
So that way it's, here's the budget contingent upon 2.5 override, period. If that doesn't, because there's too many chances for it to be
People aren't
yes
gonna
and
understand.
no and yes and no, and then we're gonna be like, okay, what do we got?
so we're gonna
If
do
that
it,
passes, let's assume, bad word, let's assume that passes. It could still not pass at the booth. So you still could have to give another option.
Well, you'd have to not have another town meeting.
We'd have to have another town meeting if we
Yeah.
only
Unless
presented
we
one
would like to
budget.
say contingent upon,
No, hold on.
we'd have to vote on that second budget, that worst case budget that night.
No.
Go ahead.
If you did an omnibus budget, one article, whatever our income number is our bottom line for a balanced budget. It's that plus the $2 million
Mm-hmm.
contingent on the override gives us the entire town budget. If it fails, and there should be some language in there, refer to handout,
Right,
override budget, cut budget, and that's it.
right.
So that way you have two budgets passed, you pass the override budget, you pass the cut budget, all in one article, you're done.
Right, I agree, you should have worst case scenario and the override, that's it. But you're only presenting the override and then you just need to have a
Right.
fallback.
No,
But
we
you
have
don't
to have-
wanna play.
We
between
need to have both of them ready to
departments.
go in order to have it for the town meeting. So now that throws out, if that's what we want to do, then that means we have to find the $218,000 so that we can have everything written appropriately for this.
Okay.
And I just wanna throw out there, because I know Gary had asked about stabilization, anybody can throw that out on the floor,
You are correct.
but I wouldn't count on it.
Which,
But at any time, somebody could say, you
Sure.
know, we need to use stabilization, I wanna
sure.
make an amendment, so.
And then we can take the time to explain what using stabilization for these costs will do.
Right, and the impact it will have in
So how will the warrant work? The warrant will have an article that would say that the budget is $27,193,747. That's what it'd say, and that would be dependent upon an override. Okay. That gets approved or disapproved. If it gets approved, that means that the entire budget as we have it comes out of the town meeting and then goes to the ballot box. Goes to the ballot box and that is not approved, and then now we're back into another meeting, special town meeting, right?
Not if we put out two budgets.
Two budgets.
Put out two budgets. So we're gonna say, we've got two articles, we've got two budget articles for you. One is with the override, and that amount is, and without the override, it's $25,477,000, something along those lines. Or,
It's one article written.
It's $25 million.
Because I think if we're gonna do this, it's gonna be easier to do one big article versus all the many different ones, because I think we have too many chances of it passing 2.5 here, not passing it here, and now we're trying to figure it all out, so just do it as one lump sum. Let's just throw everybody the wolves and figure it all out.
Well,
Good luck.
and in my this point was just to bring this up for discussion. And if we decide to do, we have already taken a vote to do it the other way. If someone wants to change and put two in, we have to bring that up, because we at the last meeting decided to just bring one budget forward.
Yeah, I still think, in my opinion, the 2.5 override is the only way that we can save government. So we put out that one, and if by chance it doesn't pass either on town floor or at the ballot box, then we have to have another special town meeting with the draconian cuts.
All right, so that's the process.
If we
That's what we voted to do
Last
last
week.
week, and we also had a town administrator, an incoming town administrator, and 4 select people all say, yep, that's a good idea.
To be fair, I didn't say a word.
Sorry, you did not say a word, which,
As of Tuesday, he'll be responsible.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, through the chair. So you basically did the same thing, because you are presenting an override budget. You're having a fallback.
All right.
So you're still doing what you agreed to do, is present a budget funded by an override. But you have to have, like I say, if things change on the floor, you've got to be ready to.
But I'm thinking more along the lines, if we have a warrant article that says the budget would be this number, 27 million, just to make it easy. And where is the article in the warrant that would say if that fails, then we will default back to 25 million?
If it fails based on an override, it automatically falls back to the next best thing, so it has to fall back.
Or it falls to nothing and we have to have another meeting.
See, that's the issue. Does it fall back or fall to nothing?
It
well,
depends
we
upon what
voted to do what you
One
just
budget.
said, one budget, no fallback, and then there will be a second meeting. If now we decide that's a bad idea, My first question is it too late to change the warrant articles? I thought that's what I heard last week, was that it was. If not, then
That's next.
maybe we reconsider it. I don't know.
Well, the
The
warrant
warrant
articles,
articles don't have to be published until what, the 18th?
Right, there's no numbers in the warrant.
and they're not right,
And,
at this point
and
yet.
no matter
they're not right.
what, the warrant articles are gonna mention an override. They have to mention an override. So the verbiage isn't gonna change.
Well, it might, because we're either gonna go with only the override language or override and fallback language, is what I thought I
There's no-
just heard.
There's no fallback language, it's just if it's overturned, then you don't have a budget without an override.
Right.
It's not gonna, it's not, the language isn't gonna change in the warrant.
So, but is the override saying we spend the $27 million, which is the number that we have, and if we don't get that over, if it doesn't get by town meeting, then we don't have a budget at all? If we don't have a budget, our budget is zero? Or
Until the town meeting.
But if the town meeting says, yeah, I agree with you guys, override, let's go for it, see you on Tuesday, and Tuesday, we don't show, and nobody shows up at the election ballot, and it fails there, are we at the default, or are we at a fallback, or at zero? I mean, if we don't have a specific, or something to say, this is where we are, what is it that we have?
So, through the chair. So, I mean, you're gonna have to be ready to explain the impact it's gonna have. So you're gonna have to have an idea of what the cuts would be. You know what I mean? Because people are gonna
Right.
wanna know. Because even on the website, it talks about the override, it talks about the additional benefits of the override. But on the website, it doesn't specifically say, if the override doesn't pass, you're gonna lose your ambulance, you're gonna, it doesn't tell you the impact that not having an override is gonna have
Right.
yet. And people are gonna wanna have some kind of an idea of that on the floor. Whether you have a specific number or not, people need to know what the impact is gonna have on departments. Department heads will have to get up and stand up and say, this, if we don't get an override, then this is what's gonna happen within the department.
By state law, we have to be done by what, midnight?
Well, now Randy can continue it. Is Mother's Day the next day?
Yep.
Yep.
So is it, yeah? Is
It
it?
always is.
Let's go straight through that.
So people typically try to come to some kind of resolution before Mother's Day, but it doesn't always happen.
I'm just, you guys make the decision.
Yeah.
Well, that's what you voted on, like Ted says, Karen, that's what you guys
We've
voted on.
already made a decision. I think
But it
what
looks-
we were just
Discussion tonight
discussing
was, should
whether or
we
not
bring
we're
it?
reconsidering it.
Right,
I don't hear anybody making a motion, so at this point, we
and I think,
probably ought to figure out where that 218,000 is coming from so we can have that second budget.
Can we just touch upon what the benefit of having the second budget at the town floor would be? What's the benefit of that? Not having to have another town meeting, right?
It's the only thing.
Is that worth having there? I mean, I think our overall decision not to bring a second budget was to say that we think this is the only choice to go. But we could also establish that by saying that we do not support the second budget.
Right.
I think that would have the same impact.
So through the chair, I think that, yeah, the point was that you were saying that this is really the only responsible budget.
Right.
I mean, I think that's the impact you're trying to make, is saying that any other scenario is not good for the town.
Right.
It just does not work. So I mean,
So by saying we don't
But we have to.
support the second budget would be a similar saying, and would therefore not cost us more money to do a second town meeting, which we're saying we don't have the money. Granted, it's a different fiscal year, so it's a little bit of a different conversation, but.
no, we could still do a second town meeting in time for the June 30th deadline.
No, I know. I'm saying that Darren was saying, we're saying that we don't have money, but we're saying we're gonna pay to do a second town meeting to bring a second budget. Which is basically saying like, we don't have money, but here's money to do this.
Okay.
So,
But we go through and we find that, let's just say tonight, we were able to find the $218,000 for the second budget. We place it on the town floor. Joe Q. Public gets up and says, it's not fair that you cut this much and I want to add this. Are we prepared to have another budget?
Well, their
so
ad
how many of
has
those
to
are
have
gonna
a
be?
funding source, correct? Their motion would need to have a funding
Nope.
source?
If someone gets up there, does an amendment, and gets the votes, now
Well, they'd
we,
have to have a funding source.
nope,
Well, they have a funding source. It's taxation. You
No.
just take it from some other place.
right.
Figure it out. So how many of those are we going
But
to?
we gotta figure that out.
No, or at that point, do you say, okay, you're asking for this, so where do you think that money's coming from?
Right, so put it back on the town.
We have to be done by midnight.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I mean, people
Right.
need to
But, I mean,
understand how
but-
bad it is.
I'm with you, and okay, whatever anybody else wants. I just think that, I thought the whole purpose, my whole suggestion last week was do one budget. Because the other budgets, we're gonna have to do several other draconian budgets to be prepared for the last minute ads that potentially could happen. Because we are going to get people who are going to say, it's not fair that I took this hit. I want more here. And we're gonna have to figure out where to get it. And it's not coming from free cash, because there is none.
Okay, so, override, $2 million. Good to go. As an alternative, we have budget cuts that get us down to within 219,000. So what do we need to be able to do to get that 218,000? And if you really want to be draconian about it, yes, you cut the library, it's 225, right?
So we already said we weren't gonna
That's, I
do
mean,
that.
that's one of the
No,
options.
I understand that, but what else would you cut?
No.
Where else do you cut?
Unless that's done on the floor.
Yes.
So like Austin had pointed out, we don't have to like have the meeting the next day. So if we ended up, if it turned into this much of a night, that was my fear, it would turn into this kind of a nightmare. The advocates for the library are gonna make motions to put money in the library, and the council on aging is gonna make motions, but it could become a total nightmare. So if Randy had to continue the meeting, it could be after the elections. It would give everybody a chance to debate about the override or not, but the biggest unknown is whether people are gonna support an override or not. So I guess if it gets to be that big of a mess, hopefully Randy will stop the meeting and continue it to another day, and at that point, you will know whether an override is gonna pass.
So if the
I mean, that's not
library,
gonna solve all your problems, but my biggest fear is, we will be there all night with different groups making motions for different
right,
people and departments, and it's gonna be all over the place, because I can tell you right now, there's plenty of people out there that are ticked for their own passions.
right.
And they're gonna be making motions all over the place, and your budgets, your numbers are gonna be going all over the place, and there's no way you're gonna be able to compensate, moving all of a sudden, you decide you're gonna close the library, the council on aging, and they make a motion and they move the money into them, where's the money gonna come from? You're not gonna be able to move your numbers around like that all night long.
But you're gonna get the same reaction to the fire department.
Right.
Or to emergency services.
That's what I'm saying,
or the
every single
police.
department.
Every one of them is gonna be making a motion to be able to put the money back.
Which is why the 2.5 override
Right.
only one budget. If it doesn't pass, then we have to have a second meeting. And the whole purpose was to meet twice a week up until whenever we have to have that, hopefully never, and we'd have all those different iterations. But we can go right now and say, here's the cuts that we've made, and we still have to make $218,000 more.
So that's, like I said, that's why I think you were standing strong to say it's gotta be a budget with an override.
Yeah.
But be prepared that you still need to have the departments be able to stand up regardless of exactly where the money's coming from, to let people know the impact it's having on their departments, whether they completely close, they cut services, or whatever they're having, the directors need to stand up and say, look, no matter what the scenario is, without an override, it's gonna drastically impact my department. And people need to understand that. And like I said, if it gets too messy and we continue it to another day, we at least, after the election, you will know if you have an override or not, and then you'll need to make those really
But
difficult.
Randy
decisions.
has to continue it to a day and time specific.
Right.
Is that your
So-
preference to do that?
But it's not, if it turns into be the kind of nightmare it
no, I
could
hear you,
possibly
but-
turn into, then
right.
that's what he's gonna have to do. We'll be there all night long
Okay.
and nothing,
And
there's
nothing
no
will
way
get
that these
resolved.
guys are gonna be able to adjust their budget to every single whim that comes out on the floor.
Right.
So I believe the reason for going with the override-only budget
Is
was
that-
to avoid that.
Right.
One reason.
This is the
One
only
reason is because we
responsible
think
way.
it's the only thing that's
Right.
viable. Second reason would be to avoid that nightmare, which we may only end up putting off that until we have it. So we still, if we need, I guess, I don't know if there's a reconsideration vote or what of the
Seems like
motion
that-
last
seems
week,
like-
but
Seems
that's
like
what we
we're sitting
decided.
where we are.
Yeah,
I
it
don't-
does sound
I
that
don't
way.
think anyone's,
I don't think that, I just wanna bring it up.
Yeah.
No, I think
And
it's
I
the right
think we
conversation.
just put together that piece of paper that says, we're not gonna have this, we're not gonna have this, you know. Seth gets to say, we're gonna lose this, and there could be potentially more cuts coming.
So the one criticism I've heard of going with the override-only approach is that no one will get to see a painful budget.
So
But
we
we
post
can
it
somehow make that available. to
I think
people,
that's why
correct?
the directors need to get up there
Push it
and
online,
speak
right.
in generalization of the impact it's
Right.
gonna have regardless. Without an override, they're all gonna be impacted, whether they're fully closed or, that, everybody's gonna be losing in the
Would we
departments.
be able to do a handout that says, if this budget doesn't pass,
Well,
here's-
they're kind of doing that, they're
Yeah.
coming up with a list of the impact
right,
it's
but
having
can we
right
get it
now.
onto one piece of paper so that, like, if I go there, I don't wanna go through all of this, I want one piece of paper that says, here's what I get here, and here's the nightmare.
well, we have one of those.
Yeah, I
Somebody
thought so.
did one.
Or we do have one,
Yeah.
and I did notice on the website.
But it's not
it talks
balanced.
about.
That's the thing, we're not balanced
It
yet.
talks about the
doesn't matter.
positive of the override, but I don't see anything that really gives,
Because
other than the
it was
individual
decided last week
departments
that we
maybe
weren't
of
gonna put that
exactly.
on.
Right, well, they want it, there should be something that says what people, the services that are gonna be lost. It needs to be somehow spelled out, and doesn't, maybe it won't be specific, because you don't have all your numbers, but there are gonna be cuts, and there are gonna be losses of services.
So
And
these
there
are
has
the
to be
things,
some information.
these are things that we're gonna lose, definitely, if you don't pass the override.
Right.
But we're not done. We're gonna be adding to that list.
Well, you
of
had a
things.
huge list of them before you had the $250,000 cut.
Right,
So
right.
you already know where you're going.
Well, we know
Oh,
how
yeah.
far we're
A
gonna
big
go.
part of it.
We don't know what else, I mean, we
No, I
are
know.
not saying we're gonna close the library yet.
Right.
So that may come down, or whatever it is that needs to be able to
You
get
can
done.
even list all those services and things that are gonna be lost with an additional $250,000 that still need to be cut.
There you go.
Make a motion that we post this spreadsheet as is on the town website,
As is,
as is.
Which one are you looking
Well,
at?
could
Yeah.
we finish the 218
Sure,
and
but
then post it with 2 columns?
I made a motion,
so it's not this spreadsheet, it's the two columns.
2 columns.
Okay, because this spreadsheet's got a lot more, and that's
Yeah, that's
only,
what-
Yeah, that's just gonna confuse.
I wouldn't wanna, I would not give the details of the salaries and all that stuff. I just do it.
It's all public.
no, you leave all
Yeah.
these details. You
They're
leave-
asking for transparency, we give
You-
them
and
full
you give 'em
transparency.
everything.
Those who wanna see it, see it.
Yeah, but nobody's gonna wanna.
Doesn't
That's
make a
not our
difference. It's
decision.
It's
for
there.
the 5 people in the
That wanna
town
read it,
that wanna
let
read it,
'em.
let them have it all.
All right.
But the thing is
Okay.
we
You
shouldn't
can't
show
pick and
them
choose.
all the different columns, because
That's
some of
fine.
them don't make a
Yep.
difference.
Yep, 2024 balance, 2024, well, it should have 2023.
So they can see what
2024
last- I agree.
override and 2023 with cuts.
2024.
Forward cuts.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, yes.
I'll second that motion.
Okay.
As that final version.
And if we can get to the 218, we'll amend that and post that instead, but
It just needs to be stated that we still have 218 left to
Yep.
cut.
I
We're
think,
And
gonna
put
be
that in
there
the
by
top
the
heading.
That's the,
You think we're gonna
But-
get there
Put it on the,
tonight?
we may.
we may, but so we'll post it and we'll say, this is still missing 218 from the bottom line. We'll put that as a apostrophe or whatever on the
Yep.
line, but
That's
put
fine.
it on the top, the heading.
wherever, yep.
So it's right there.
Draft.
We've got some time.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
and
Right.
That's fine.
But the point is to
I don't
get
have
the
any issues
transparency
with
in
that.
there.
I think that's a good thing to do, but
Because people are saying we're not being transparent. They need to see.
the school is saying we're not being transparent. But let's not go there, because they
Yeah.
lost $1.6 million, but let's not go there.
There are other people that are saying that, just not in a direct email, I'm sure.
I think they're confused.
Right, I agree.
I'm not
Because,
sure this is gonna help
because,
with that, but-
because the answers change constantly. 'Cause-
Right.
But it's not because you guys aren't it's changing all the time.
Right.
It's not that you're not being transparent, it's just you don't have the final answers yet, so. it's-
Correct.
Okay, so can I ask the question about what the motion is specifically?
We're gonna,
Could you repeat it?
I said to post on the website the budget as is amended to be just the 3 columns of FY '23 town meeting, FY '24 override, FY '24 balance with finance committee budget. As is.
or worst case scenario,
case.
I think we should
However
say,
you want to
just
call
say
it.
whichever way
Whatever
we
the
want to
word
do it, it's the
Or
worst case scenario.
If 2.5 doesn't pass.
Okay.
it's something.
I was more stating because that's the exact name of the column on the
Right,
spreadsheet.
that's just what- yeah.
So those are the 3 columns
Right.
on this. We can name it whatever we want, but
So, that we.
Do we get a
question?
second? Did you second
Here in a
that?
second, yeah.
Second.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
So, I think at this point here,
talk about the cuts.
talk about the remaining 218 that we have to go to, right?
Yep. So,
And I think that
sorry, go ahead.
the town administrator is chomping at the bit over there to tell us where he's found some different things, and we can at least take those under consideration. How's that?
Can I ask one question before we go there? The town clerk assistant that we were just talking about, that's in the budget right now at 18,158, is that correct?
I believe so. Yeah, at
Halftime?
halftime.
So if we were to not fill that position at all,
Comes out.
would it, I mean, that was, what was kind of said earlier, would that be is that what would happen, or would we still fill it at the halftime?
No, I think it'll go less than that. It'll go less, it won't be, it'll be
I brought it up because,
for that.
Yeah, no, I
I'm
get it.
bringing it up because I don't think it should be posted.
No, I get it, I'm just saying,
You weren't here for that one. They don't want, Karen, I think that should be posted like till after this is settled.
I saw that email, and considering what you're looking for cuts, I mean,
Yeah.
I agree. Even if we have to bring in a temporary person or something to assist with that, but
okay.
when we're telling people we're cutting people and hiring people, it's.
I mean, you're saying it's a 28-hour benefited position, and then they get hired, and then we go, whoops, we were wrong.
I mean, it's a mixed message, and I understand the need, there's a need for all the support that we have.
What's the number you said, Alex?
It doesn't matter. It's 18. So we would, so with the cuts, we would still hire that position at halftime.
With the cuts, yeah.
With the cuts would still be, so we're not saving anything, but no line item. Okay.
I don't know, because we're still $218,000 short, so we
Yeah,
have to figure out a place.
I was wondering if that was already decided and we had
Yep.
extra in there. No, that's fine. And then just one other quick comment on some of these departments, and there's, few, but there's 5 or 6 that between 2023 and the 2024, I'm gonna call it finance committee budget because that's the column, but we'll call it the balance with
Whatever,
cuts. They are either the same or greater than, knowing that some of them are dependent on, union, things like that are committed and we have no choice about. Obviously, that's an understanding. But you still have departments, i.e. the biggest one there is police, that has between FY '23 and the now cut budget is still greater than FY '23.
Yep,
Which I think is a disservice to the rest of the town departments.
yep.
The other one is dispatch, I believe, as well.
That's because we brought in
Dispatch.
that's because we brought in another town.
Does
Okay,
does
so that has revolving.
reflect the portion per town?
We put the income from the other towns in on the income line so that
Okay,
the
so
whole
you
thing's.
balance
Okay.
that out.
That it's,
So police is the biggest there, and then there's a couple others, the inspector departments as well. All of those are equal to the 2023. They're not greater than, but they're equal, so we've made no cuts to
no, we made cuts to the building inspector.
building inspector, okay, not electric and not plumbing.
Aren't they like minimal? Aren't
They are.
Not even.
We, the cuts,
Electric is,
the cuts came in as the building inspector, because that's where, they were looking for 85 and we have down to 69. We cut his clerical in half.
and between all of the inspected, not building, but the other 3, you've got 70-ish grand total.
Yep.
And those have not changed from FY '23. In fact, plumbing went up slightly. Again, some of them are contractual obligations, but I think those are the ones that we need to address as we've cut highway administration by 140 grand, which is 20% of their overall budget, and we have increases in police.
So how would you affect the police? I mean, what would you take out?
I don't think we should tell them.
Dollar-wise. How would
just
you
dollar-
tell
just
dollar
dollar.
amount?
Take out the overage, which I think, rough figure of 62K from the 23 budget. So you're taking that out and you're going back another 66.
FY '23 budget was 73 grand according to this.
I'm looking at the total dollar amount.
Total dollar amount for what?
Police is 1.311372.
Yeah.
24 is 1.373961. So there was roughly $62,000 overage that was increased. So we took that 62 out and an additional 66 out.
So you're saying we're
I
gonna
have those
take
numbers right here that you told me to get.
plus
That's what we've been working on today. So I have the amount of $218,708.
218,708?
Yeah,
You have that?
I have that.
All right, let's go through that. Is that fine?
Well, you said you didn't need it till Thursday.
Hey, you're a short timer, you should be looking for friends.
Cherry.
Okay, let's start at the top then, make it easy.
You want me to go down the list?
Yep,
Okay.
start at the beginning.
Well, the first one was the one we talked about the other night. Seems kind of silly, but it was the town moderator, the stipend. The second one is,
Stipend was already taken.
that wasn't from the moderator at the time, no.
It was, we took that last
It
week.
was like a last minute, I think we did
Yep.
that last,
Yeah,
but that's
we took that.
$75, so that's not gonna
Yeah,
have
I
a huge
know,
impact
I
on
know.
us.
The next one was from you, Karen, FinCom, which I kind of asked the question on that, because I understand Tamika's done for the remaining of fiscal. That's a salary, that's a budgeted line item. I don't understand, I don't remember you making a motion to have her not come anymore.
To this year?
Yeah.
I don't know where she got that. I said tonight she didn't need to come because I would take the minutes because she's at another meeting.
Oh, okay,
Just have
okay.
that.
That's what I had written,
Smile,
so, I mean,
okay. 15, okay. But you did suggest that her position be cut in.
That was cut last-
not
that
only
was cut
finance,
last
but
week.
Also, Board of
select board,
Selectmen.
we
and
cut her out
appeals.
of select board, we collect, so
Okay.
that
So
was already
FinCom,
up.
150375, postage supplies, 1140.
Wait a second, which, don't give me account numbers, give me departments,
I
and then
didn't
that
give you
helps
an
me.
account number.
Huh?
I'm just
15,703?
reading the title. I've given you a dollar amount.
In which department?
Postage supplies.
For the,
Postage
want an account
supplies,
number?
that's a GL, what's the department that that's coming from?
Treasure collector.
Treasure collector.
Thank you.
perfect.
That was in the-
Supposed to be.
You tracking it?
Your 75 bucks
Right.
are gone, so.
So you're saying under treasurer and collector, we have postage of 2280 and supplies of 2440.
Postage, you have 2440, right, and 2280, that's correct.
I have
Out of that is coming postage supplies, 1140.
So-
$1,140.
Under postage, 001-159-5200-000.
Yep,
Okay. We're gonna make it how much?
it's coming out of it is 1140.
Okay.
Okay? As we talked about, but I don't think
So-
anybody, oh, okay.
That's postage though, that we need to mail out stuff.
We need all of these things to do stuff. So we can't mail as much. We don't have any choice.
Okay.
As we talked about, but really wasn't discussed much, was the town planner. 50% cut. to come out of their revolving, not the position, so $41,280.72.
What department,
Planning board.
Planning board.
So, but we can't make that cut, or we're gonna take half of his salary. Now, there's a department of one.
Take half of his salary, but the other, he doesn't lose any hours. He gets the other half out of revolving as it was done.
We
in the past.
can't say that.
But
We
we're
have to
cutting
ask
the,
them.
yeah, but he's just
So
saying.
we're gonna
cut the
take half
salary
of that
by
out, and they
50%.
gotta figure out where. So we've already taken 10% out, so you're saying make it half-time.
Yeah, correct. I don't see which other way to determine all these other things.
that's 169,001, 175?
Yeah. Planning board is 175, and then it's 5110. Town planner
So
salary.
that gets it to 40,316.50,
Okay.
correct?
I've got 41,280.72.
His salary was 80,633.
82. It's
No,
82.
because we took out the COLAs and the steps.
Oh,
therefore it was
before, but that was the
80,630.
first suggestion, that's where we go, with that was a 10%. So that's 74,021.09.
Hold on one second. The starting amount is 80,633. Because that's with no step and no COLA for
Okay,
this year.
okay, I see, okay, that
Okay.
number, okay.
So if you take half of that, it brings us to 40,316.50.
Correct.
But didn't he get an increase like everybody else, January 1st?
You voted opera funds last week for,
He wasn't on top step.
Which
That's why he
I
came
brought
to
down.
82,561.
If you go to the line where it says 2023 annual town meeting, special town meeting adjustments,
86,633.
it's brought, there it says 80,633. So we
That
brought,
was for the period January 1st to June 30th.
so we put him,
So then he got his next step. On July 1st would be 82,561, 44.
but we're not giving any COLAs or any step
You
increases.
approved ARPA the other night to adjust, to take care of the raises that were for FY '24.
Tell me what you want me to put in and I'll just type it in. What's the amount that you need me to put in?
The amount I just read you, 41,280.72.
41,280.72.
Yep,
Okay.
okay?
Yep.
Town buildings, $6,434.75.
Town buildings, public building maintenance,
Yes,
we're gonna take out how much?
$6,434.75.
And where is that coming from? Do we know?
That's just 5% of the total purchase,
Okay.
supplies and services.
Okay, so it comes down to 122,260.25, okay?
Police, 66,000. That's coming from staffing, again, supplies, and that's also sending a cruiser back, have it voluntarily repossessed.
So, question. We can't just say public, we have to tell the line item that's coming from, don't we?
No, we do not, because they're gonna have to tell us.
Right.
We're gonna tell them the amounts, Gary's giving us the amounts, Gary's gonna tell the department heads, where are you gonna get this from?
I think he knows that though already.
Well, he does,
He's
but
telling us
he
the
needs them
exact
to
line
know.
item it's coming from.
He didn't, the 64,34.75, he didn't give me a specific line item. You're telling me on each line I'm taking out 5%.
Total of the total dollar amount for that section.
And they're gonna figure that out. They're gonna figure that out,
They're
right?
gonna figure that out, I'm giving you the total
That's
per department.
That's what we're talking about before.
No, but I just wanna know how she's gonna figure it out. 5% of every line item for
No,
that total.
there's exceptions to that, Darren, but I tried to base it on a 5% so it was equitable right across the board. There's others that we
So
still
as
have
of
to
right
go
now, the 64,34.75 is just coming from, so until we get the specifics from the department managers, I don't think it's a good idea to post this with these numbers just willy-nilly, because I have to just put them on a blank
You know where
line.
it's
through. When
going.
you're saying department managers, town buildings is DPW.
I know that.
Well, you know where the police department's coming out of, right?
I got a report in my office from the police chief, yeah. I have the dollar figures for you here, not the report. I just wanted to give you the dollar figures because I know you wanted them prior to Thursday's meeting.
Can we, if this is just gonna be for use to put on the website, can we just add a line for each department, I'm just saying, just because
like
it's
it.
gonna be on the
I like it.
website, and say, this is the cut that's being made to
Right.
this department, just a one line, to be determined by the department head.
No, because there's already cuts in here.
Yeah, and if he has the majority of them, granted, it sounds like we have a little bit more to go, but if he has a majority of them, I'd rather get them into
You know what I'm gonna do?
the most recent.
I'm gonna email this to you. You can put them in and then bring them back to us, email it back, and I'll email it out to the
Email
department
what to
head.
me?
I'm gonna email you the ledger. You can put in your cuts where they need to come from,
Okay, all right.
and then you can email it back to me and I'll get it out to the finance committee. Because we're gonna be bouncing all over the place, because we're not going down in one lump sum, we're going down here and up here, and it's just,
It's hard to follow.
it's very hard to follow, and there's gonna be mistakes.
But
Are
but
you,
he knows.
are you at zero?
You told me to get $218,708, that's what I got you.
It's not gonna be quite zero because a few of
Yeah, but
the
there's a
cuts he
couple of
had in
adjustments
there
you're saying,
were
yeah,
already
yeah.
addressed. So I do feel like we should have him go through the remainder of this list, even if we're just listening, to make sure that we did not already include them in our cuts.
Okay.
And then we.
And just to highlight them, and then he can
And then
finish.
he can finish, go
He
back.
don't, and then he
yep,
can come back with his 218 if he, when he's going through,
Right.
he'll see it at the bottom. Okay,
So let's finish going through it, even if we're not copying it down. I just wanna.
so continue with the police department,
You had the
sir.
police, 66K. Animal control, 268.40. Karen, I don't know if this one, if you've already taken this out, because we had a brief conversation about this. Dispatch wages, $5,517.18.
Okay.
DPW, $54,639.95.
Okay.
Library, $4,150. COA, $380. Those totals that I just gave you are $175, $389.75. On top of that is what you suggested the other night, $4,574 for Tamika. COA, $12,914.75. And library, $25,829.50. And what I did with those last two, with the remaining balance I needed to get to that, those numbers equal 218,708. So with that, those last two, it involves 3 people, so I just divided that, what I needed, by 3, and took it out of the part-time wages. There's virtually no place else to take anything from.
With those cuts, are there additional unemployment?
You'll have additional unemployment for the they could claim for part-time.
Okay.
And with those cuts, you'll have additional unemployment effective December 31st, 24 for police.
Okay.
So that'll get, he can do that through the months, and also it reduces the hours for administrative support.
Okay, so the problem is we need to have that amount cut out too.
There has to be cuts totaling that.
So, going back to the top of the list, there was 3 or 4 items that we had already removed to get to the 218.
Yeah, I'm saying 3 and 4, is it? I know we talked about the 75, but
Yeah.
you're saying 3 or 4 though, Alex, which
Yeah,
ones were you?
Tamika was one of them. I know that. What was the second one you said? Sorry.
Tamika was the second, and next was postage.
The moderator's stipend was the first, Tamika was the second.
And you said Tamika again later on, though.
Tamika's again, because it was suggested last week that you'd take her out of the selectmen's budget.
She was taken out of finance committee, select board, and board
Zoning
of
board.
appeals.
Well,
We
To
had
get
taken
to
that out.
218, right?
Yeah,
So
that got us
those-
to
that was
218.
already included as well.
Those were included in one?
Yeah,
Okay.
last week we made all
And
those.
that's what I still have to make up the difference for.
And the additional unemployment,
Right. Whatever that would be.
because I included the 104 in the total, so that was to the 218. So if there's more, then we have to cut
There's
more.
gonna be more because you asked for the additional 218, so it involves more people.
But we're close, and the majority is coming from the police, which is
Police and
the
DPW.
largest, or the one with the least cuts right now.
Again.
Yeah,
How much
that's
was
the
coming out of
thing.
DPW again?
$54,639.
How
How
we
can they
do
even
that.
function?
Plus that
do
amount I
anything.
gave you for the
I mean,
How are we gonna
this
do
this is again goes back to this is already a problem budget. So
Right.
what does it matter?
Right.
Yeah, but.
It's an exercise at this point.
So, but
What it matters is, if
What?
it goes down, you gotta be careful what we do with DPW.
Well,
If it
You're
goes
not
down-
gonna get your road plowed. How's that?
You've
Well,
got the
and
three-
we have support staff in some departments. They're cut half-time, but they haven't been cut out completely.
Right, but they,
Public, but we have support staff and we're cutting what was already 1.5 people to even less.
in DPW?
Yeah,
Yes, two less.
yeah,
You're gonna have one.
okay.
Joe?
I mean, I think my opinion is public safety is,
The three big,
More important.
the three big chiefs, and that's what I've always called them, you can't afford to shut them down. They're gonna be reduced. But the other departments are gonna be completely dysfunctional. That's the way it's gonna be.
but we still have, okay.
But we know the 2.5 is gonna pass both that town meeting
If you
and the
guys
booth.
think that's acceptable. I just think we have support
That'd be
staff in
fine.
there,
It
but I
has
think
to.
we should take some of those out.
You've got 60,000 in clerical wages for police, and you're
That's
cutting,
part of the cuts.
that's part of the
That's
cuts?
part of the cuts.
100% of it?
100% no, but it's up to the department head.
It's about to the department head where to cut it, but I'm saying that we could be taking out some of the support staff and other departments. Because then we could reinstitute some of it, because we're cutting
Well, Gary needs to make a
DPW.
little
You
more.
think it's going to be dysfunctional in the other departments? With one person in DPW and we have, what, 84 miles of road in
Yep.
town?
Yep.
How are we gonna ever be able to get any of that done?
You're not.
Right. I mean, but we're worried about having a half-time assistant town clerk. I understand, but it's $54,000 cut into a department that hasn't been made whole since you were here. I'm just saying, I think we keep hitting the same department, same department, same
The
department, same
small
department.
departments don't have budgets. The smaller departments, what are you gonna, you're gonna close them. They don't have budgets.
So what about closing actual buildings, like the annex? How much does that save by closing the annex, or?
Moving you guys over into the town hall.
Well, that's our big plan to do that. I mean, but not a good time to be talking about that. I mean, we hope to use some of the money from real estate funds for infrastructure improvements that went in from the sale of the Heights. But that's only 1.6 total, but all the fees come out of that. So was it 1.4 left, Linda, 1.2?
So let me just recap something here and get it clear in my mind. So you're saying with these dramatic cuts, we're only gonna have one person working at the highway barn?
Yeah, because we had to shift some, because we didn't fill the chief water operator, like I told you, so you got two people working half-time between DPW and water, one for management of the plant, one for the construction end of it, water gates and so on and so forth. So you got and one of those is a mechanic. You got the sewer guys.
Water and sewer separate from DPW.
Oh, yeah, yeah, that's my point. So DPW, there'd be one left because of the split of the other two.
Right. So if we cut the assistant town clerk, the assistant town treasurer, and the assistant board of assessor, that's $56,000.
And a big mistake.
They're all mistakes.
They're all
That's
mistakes.
a big mistake. They
But I
can't keep
mean,
up with the
having
workload
one
they have.
person in DPW, I'm sorry, it's public safety.
But you're not gonna have one person in a treasurer's office, in the assessor's office, gonna be able to keep the workload going. You're not. You're not gonna have a person
And
to
one person in
process.
DPW is gonna keep DPW running?
Well, I guess it's,
It's
Give me
not
the lesser
good,
of
but you're
two
not
evils,
looking at
Karen.
apples to apples. It's not apples
Right.
to apples.
Go ahead.
So through the, so I mean, we basically have always left it up to the department where to make the
Right.
cuts. I understand your point. Would you rather have somebody answering the phones or out plowing the roads? Let the phones ring. So I mean, it makes sense in a lot of departments that support staff aren't as necessary, but it's really up to the department to make their own cuts.
Right, but if we're not telling the town clerk to cut,
Right.
they're not gonna cut it. We're telling DPW to cut 50 some odd $1,000
I
out.
just know from experience, I had like 8 support staff in my offices, and they cut me down to 1, and I never got any back.
Right,
So a lot of these cuts may be forever cuts, especially if there's not an override, there's not gonna be revenue. So these will probably be forever cuts. And managers will have to, they say technology replaces support staff, but it obviously doesn't fully do that. And it impacts customer services and what we're gonna be able to offer to the community, but you're gonna have to make cuts if people don't wanna, approve an override, so.
So,
But we've always left it up to the departments.
Right, but again, if we aren't telling town clerk to cut 18,000,
no,
they're not gonna
I'm
take,
talking
they're not
about-
gonna say, ooh,
I'm
let
talking about
me.
DPW, and I don't know what Joe did, whether he, didn't cut a secretary, or cut a driver, or what he did, but I understand what you're saying about the clerk's office, but the DPW is kind of, these big ones, a lot of it you really need to leave it up to the directors, the chiefs.
I agree.
And the directors, but.
I just, Darren's opinion, as a taxpayer, if you aren't gonna plow the roads, what good is it to have a fire department and a police department? Because they're not gonna come to your house. And then, so why are we even thinking that we need a library and we need a council on aging? I mean, everybody's protected. I hate to say this, I'm gonna get another 100 phone calls, but why do we want, you're gonna have a library up here and a council on aging, but we're not gonna plow the roads. I think we're going down the wrong trail.
So we have a lot of elderly in town, and if they need the assistance, where are they gonna get it?
They're not gonna be able to get out of the house because the road's not gonna be plowed.
So
You know what, I don't disagree with you, but do we need to come to the library for books? I'm not saying that I'm not against the library at all. My kid, it's a great place, but let's be realistic here. If you can't plow your roads with one guy, what are we gonna do?
I know you're using it as an example, but isn't plowing the roads out of snow and ice?
It is.
Yeah, it is. And plus, we do have contractors for plowing, for
So
plowing.
theoretically,
We have
I know
roads
it's
that
an
we don't
example.
plow.
We utilize the sewer workers for plowing roads, we utilize water. It just comes out of different budgets, but we have people to do it.
All right then, so we're good then. We're all good.
You're never gonna.
I
No,
disagree.
but I mean, so we're good with the,
No, we're far from it.
I disagree, because I think we saved the 55 into DPW, which has only got 1.5 people, and make some cuts in some of the other departments. That's
What other departments, Cal?
the
It's my
assistant,
guess.
the assistant in the town clerk, the assistant in the town treasurer collector, and the assistant in the assessor's office.
well,
I mean, the fact is, I understand the importance of them. I'm not gonna deny that. But I've also been in positions where people have left and we can't afford to hire them. And so guess what? It lands in my lap to do it. We've all been there. But to only have one person in DPW,
yeah, but as long as the road doesn't snow, we'll be good. If it snows, we got money.
how are we going to, if you live on a gravel road, how are they gonna, I mean, right now, we've cut them to nothing anyway. But, you have a pothole, there's so many of these things, I'm like, I think we keep hitting the top 3 or 4 departments, and we've hit DPW for so many times.
Yes, you have. Hit them all. Assistant treasurer is what, salaried at 58, so you're gonna get rid of that position and you're gonna pay 30.
Not the treasurer collector, the assistant,
Yeah.
the 26,
Oh,
945 would be gone.
okay. Those are those numbers. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. You're
Yeah.
right. So you're gonna pay 30.
No, we're gonna pay nothing, we're getting rid of the 26,
You're gonna pay 30 for unemployment.
okay? So then we have to find that, but, and I understand that, but the thing is I don't think cutting DPW to one person is,
Smart?
I just,
No, it's not smart. Not cutting all of what we're talking about is not smart.
so,
We have to give a worst case. That's what you wanted, a worst case. This is it. You've got no more. There's no more rapids that come out of any goddamn Sorry.
But again, what about closing a building?
You
Do we
started, you
need the
said-
annex? Can
you
the
swore
people,
last week.
the offices in the annex be supported someplace else?
If you, I'm guessing, based on this budget, that the purchase service in the, sorry, I'm getting there. purchase service lines for public building maintenance is what we would save if we close a building. Public, annex is $11,000.
It wouldn't save that, because we'd have to,
So you're talking $8,000 if we
Right.
close. So like closing buildings, although, has minimal impact potentially, it also has minimal savings.
Yeah, you got an expense to winterize them.
Right.
That's what the thing was. You leave the power on anyway, because you're not using them. No heat.
Right.
I just,
I mean, I think Darren's correct, though. I think that if we're going down that road, you're better off closing something like a library or a COA than you are.
Well, then the library, let's talk about that for a minute. Then the library says that they can close this building and we can't use it anymore. I disagree with them, but.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, no. Well, we have meetings and everything here.
Sure. But we'd have to find a different place to have meetings in.
So here's a theory, and I want to just throw this out there. I know nobody wants to use the reserve funds or any of that stuff, At this point here, can we only, if we kick it down the can down the road, which I think is a horrible idea, what's worse?
Next year it'll be worse.
What's that?
If you don't get 2.5, next year it'll be worse.
Well, yeah, but if we use stabilization funds, it'll help us get through the first year. Maybe it'll help us get through a little bit of the second year. But it's going down the. Listen, like I said earlier to someone, we're flushing, and we're gonna hold the handle down on the second part. What are we gonna do here, guys?
But you made the point earlier, get the 2.5 override, and it's $2 million, how long is that gonna last? Well, what we're saying, if we don't get the 2.5 override, that whole problem that we have just continues to go on forever.
Well, why wouldn't we use stabilization funds then?
Well, because it's not gonna last, that won't last forever.
It
We're gonna have to use it for next year. and
So
the
you're
year
not
after
gonna
that.
get your road taken care of.
And that's, we're saying, force the
but don't
issue
worry,
now.
we'll have an assistant in the town treasurer's office, town clerk's
Well,
office.
someone's
and
gonna collect the tax money.
We have
A
those.
lockbox?
We have full-time people in those departments. I mean, I know I keep harping on that, but the fact is, public safety, I'm sorry, public safety was there for us throughout the pandemic. They showed up every day and were there for the residents, taxpayers of the town. And I'm not saying that the departments weren't, but they had the luxury of sitting at home in their pajama pants with their computers. Whereas the firemen, the DPW, and the police and dispatch didn't have that luxury. They showed up every day.
I think you'll find that others showed up every day too. And I wasn't here during the pandemic. The latter part of it, but you will find that the buildings may have been closed and locked, but the people ran them.
So if we're going down this road that it's gonna stink and it's gonna be horrible, why would we even care stabilization? Might as well just use it. What's the difference?
Just sets up a structural deficit for next year.
You know what? We're gonna be in the same spot anyways.
Then use the stabilization to pay the one-time cost of unemployment. One time. It's not a deficit next year. It's a one-time cost.
Yep,
And that solves that issue.
That's a good point.
Still, it's the best
It is.
floor.
so it's
Right,
past the
but
floor.
then if it doesn't, we haven't incurred the bill yet, and the bill comes quarterly, and we can always address it in fall town meeting with free cash or stabilization again.
Or you've always got the option that it doesn't hit the unemployment because people have found other jobs and
Correct.
don't file unemployment.
God bless them if they do.
Good call. Good call.
Which we had discussed doing, but
Yes,
then
we
we
did.
said we weren't gonna do that, we were gonna try to find it all.
Right.
So,
But that's a good, but that
That
is,
is-
that's a good use.
huh?
We have to.
We have to what?
I think we
We're at the
said
point.
last week we had to find all of those cuts
Yeah.
because
Yeah, but Seth's saying that we use stabilization for the one thing that is part of this budget that we don't have to fund.
Well, how much
Every
is
time
that?
that we, if we
last
buy-
week we said, yeah, we'd go with a third iteration of that budget, but
Right.
that is far from a guarantee.
Well, I think we're at a point right now that we have a budget, whether we all agree that
Can you
we
have
like
this
it.
back to me tomorrow morning so I can get it
You
out
gonna
to
send me
them?
what are you gonna send me though?
I already sent it to you, so it's already there. I already have it. So can you,
Did you put a footnote of what?
can you
what
get
I
it
would pay?
back to me tomorrow?
I can, Sherry, if you tell me what You're gonna have to point out.
My
which
name's
one-
not Sherry. Let's just put it that way. My name's not Sherry.
But you know why you have that. You're gonna send me bullet points of what you think that we've mentioned twice.
Well, you have
or
them.
what was already.
Well, you can look down and see what I've done. It's all there in the finance committee budget side. If you need
I'll
anything,
get it
call.
back to you tomorrow.
Do you have time to go up there?
Not tomorrow morning. I don't tomorrow.
Okay.
Yes, Lyndon.
So if you consider using stabilization for unemployment, how do you present that?
It's the very last article at town meeting.
Based on thinking that you won't get the override?
Right.
Well,
So
so,
there will be some unemployment cost for no matter what version you take.
Not if you get the
Not
override.
Oh, if you're right, no.
Right,
No.
and that's what you're presenting.
Right.
So if it passes,
But at town
how are
meeting,
you
but you still have to know at the
presenting
booth.
unemployment?
so could we just put that as a contingent upon, or in essence, or in effect, or in
As a
case
separate article?
the override doesn't pass, the article will address paying the unemployment out of the
We were
stabilization.
only going to show one budget on the town floor.
Yes, we are.
Well, I'm not talking about.
So
well,
there would be no warrant article for the stabilization.
But this is a one-time expense.
Hold on a second.
Okay,
We're putting up one budget.
all right.
We
On the
do
town
this at
floor.
the special meeting that
At
we're
the
having.
special town meeting, we will
Got
be
it.
doing that.
Okay.
So the first meeting is just the 2.5 override.
Got it, okay.
We are trying to put together the worst-case scenario so that we can tell people, you might as well move, because it's going to suck if you don't do this.
No, good point.
I have a question.
Yes.
If our moderator was to postpone the meeting till the following Saturday, or whatever the time is, and we had the results of the election,
Right.
would that make our life any easier? We go in there, what do we need to do at the town meeting other than Randy to postpone till 2 weeks, or whatever that time frame is?
Yeah, but presentations, Darren. I mean, you got still, because there's a lot of people out there don't know what's going on. You gotta have, that's really the only venue you have right now. Presentation at town meeting floor. We're coming down here for 4 Sundays. They're doing it this coming, right, and 2 following. And it was a pretty good meeting, I thought. So I hope it's not the same people. I hope it's a
But if you
different.
don't get the word out on the,
Yeah, I already set that up. Yeah.
if you don't have the town floor there to hear the importance of this, I don't care how many places we put it. I don't care if you got it free with every drink that you got up, you get a free drink with it every time that you go up to the center tree. We're still not gonna hit as many people as we are on the town floor.
That'd be a good way of getting it out, though.
Dunkin'
That
Donuts.
Dunkin' Donuts,
So,
drive-through.
my understanding of general law is the select board places the override on the ballot. There's no requirement that town meeting has to approve it. Town of Shrewsbury, select board placed it on the election ballot, and it was approved.
We've always been told it was a 2-step process, unless something has changed.
So if the select board already essentially voted to place it on the ballot, to Darren's question, you may have an informed electorate for town meeting, confidence that the ballot approved it.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 people out of 9,000. I don't think we're gonna get enough people that would get,
Well,
that's my
I
opinion.
think the main thing is getting the message of with and without the override. I mean, obviously there's an override, people know there's an override out there, but they need to understand the impact it has.
Wish the election was before.
The only thing is the election before, the people who aren't going to take the time to know what it is, aren't gonna know what they're just gonna see a 2.5 override and vote it down. If they see it at a town floor, they can see, oh crap.
Yeah.
Darren, your odds and people on the street floor, in my professional opinion, it's likely to pass at your town meeting. If you postpone your town meeting to afterwards, it's really null and void whether it passes at the ballot or not. So if you gotta get at least some momentum of it potentially passing at your town meeting, you have a better chance of it passing if the election's after it. If the election goes before it and people are uneducated
Yep.
and understand the drastic,
You
we're down to one highway guy,
Yeah.
in my opinion, I'm not as old as you and wise as you, I feel that it would more likely fail before the town meeting.
Okay. I'm just looking for an opinion, that's all, guys, and I appreciate that through the chair.
I mean, because
That's all.
it's, now, I don't know if we want to say, we can tell them where we're at now. I don't know if that's going to be the final. Or we could say these are the potential cuts.
Preliminary.
So through the chair, Austin had said that we could put a placeholder. If you guys decide you want to do the stabilization for unemployment, he said we can put that as a warrant article as a placeholder for that purpose. How are you going to reflect that on getting the information out to the public? I'm not sure.
The budget for the town meeting will be the 2.5 override only.
Right, no, I know.
So there's no reason to put anything for stabilization for the annual town meeting, because there will be no need. It passes or it doesn't pass. If it doesn't pass on
Then
town
you're just going to
floor,
go to another.
then we have another meeting. Is that still what that's what I kept
No, we're all back, no, we agree.
I
I'm
was
just-
like, please tell me that's what I keep hearing.
Yep,
So
no,
there's no reason, that would be at the second meeting that we would have to have.
On the same evening or a different evening?
Different evening.
It's gonna be,
We figured the
Post.
3rd of July would be good. Right before the,
chicken barbecue?
right after, and right before the
So-
fireworks.
Fireworks.
It's gotta be before July
As
1st.
I understand what you're saying, and what you discussed earlier, if you have another town meeting, there's another expense. Just keep that in
Yes.
mind. It's
Right.
a small expense, but it's another expense that you'll have to occur.
I think at this point, I don't think any of us are confident enough that we could even make any of this work in the worst case scenario.
Right.
And we want to spend a little bit more time. We kind of rushed through this. We want to look at it and we want to see. I don't know, does anyone here feel confident to go on Thursday and say, here, we got to write all these warrant articles up because they have to be posted by next week with 2 budgets?
No.
No, and I think, you weren't here for it, Randy, when we were talking about it, that if people come to the town meeting and propose on the floor, all right, we want to put X amount in the library, we have to find out where that money's coming from. So if all these departments come and say, I want X amount of money, we can't do it that night.
The only way we can continue to run this town to any semblance of government is with a 2.5 override.
I hope 50% of the voters in this town agree with you.
I agree, but
I realize statistics that show it differently, right? But I think if we spend time on explaining the urgency of it, and you have a budget that's relatively close at zero with no tax increase, right? I think that you're not the only one with a concern of how are we gonna run a highway or how you're gonna run a town hall with only half the people there. I think the majority of the people in this town understand that, and I think it's gonna pass easier than you think it's going to. I think the challenge you're gonna have is the elderly folks that are on a fixed income
There you
who
go.
don't choose to do it. There is some method out there. Some people say we may not have the ability to fall within that threshold, right? But unknown, they have the ability to do that and possibly work some of that off. That's some of my concern, and I haven't had a lot of elderly folks speak to me on behalf of that. But the people that have talked to me in years past, there's no way in living heck we're gonna pay more taxes in this town because we don't need to. And the challenge that we've had as a town of Rutland is we've always pulled that rabbit out of that hat.
That's
We never really know where it came from, but it came from, right? And the problem, I think we've called, we're at the 3rd house there with a big wolf that cries wolf, and it's gonna either blow over, or we gotta pay that extra money that we're going to. I had a question earlier that I don't necessarily know if I don't know the answer, but I'd like to ask it, and I don't know, I'm sure you folks have already thought about it.
okay.
In some neighboring towns, they don't have their own police department in the evening and they allow the state police to do it. How do we go about, I'm sure there's a cost to that, but is that a reduced cost? And can we do some more regionalization to, similar to what Ocam has done about ambulance service, right? We called in, Ocam called us in to help them save money to make their budget work. And we considered that. Farm Bureau just wanted to downsize and couldn't afford it. They hired a payroll service to do their service. Can we hire somebody to save money? I know in the past we've hired people to plow roads, and there's different opinion whether that saves money or not versus hiring somebody to sit in a truck that we already own, but we can't do that. I realize you've thought about all that, but yet, do you tell Nick, hey Nick, you know, your budget's cut in half, figure out how to do it on your own, and Nick has the decision to call the state police and say, hey, come on in and give us a hand, we can't afford it, right? Or can we call the state in to plow our roads because we can't afford it? I don't know that answer. It's just something to think about.
That did come up
It
briefly.
was last week.
Yeah, Leo brought that up.
Yeah. And the other thing that has come up briefly is like, even like the contract with the schools and the fields, and whether you contract out independently, whether there's a savings to that. Because if you don't have the staff, and you're not paying for their benefits and their full-time.
We're gonna have to do that
So
for this
there's-
year, because we're not gonna,
There
with
are-
the cuts,
Right.
we can't live up to our end of the school maintenance.
So rather, there are creative
So we
ways
have to
of
hire somebody.
outsourcing services if necessary,
But Randy,
the override's the answer.
but Randy still has a good point, and that's the credibility. There's a lack of credibility between the town and the townspeople. They just don't believe that we're in as dire a situation, and that we are miraculously, that the town is going to come up with the money. They don't know that yet.
I tried to explain that at the meeting they had at the library, and that's what we need to do, is constantly explain that we're not lying to them, and that we've had turnovers and we've had problems, but we've still provided services, and they need to understand that you get to a point where you can only do more with less,
Right.
and then you just do less, because we're at that point. So that's the message that's gotta be continued. The message, I mean, the meeting at the library was good, the meeting at the Council on Aging was good. I know Nancy's talked to Karen about having another meeting at the Council on Aging.
Yep.
So, but people need to participate. So Gary was there, Karen was there, I was there, Nancy and Carrie were there. But yeah, every department needs to be voicing their opinion publicly whenever they can, as
Right.
far as the impact it has on their departments
Yeah.
and on the town floor.
Well, as far as who's hearing about those, I had no idea it was even happening, so obviously the word's not very good.
Well, it is, because it's now on the
it's
town
on the
website. It was on the town sign.
But the first one wasn't very good. I never knew about it.
It was not.
And I get the
Too,
pulse
but
of Rutland
it all
over
depends
there.
on how you get
The
your
mayor of
news.
Rutland didn't even know what was going on. We were over there, and he's like, "Hey, did you know about that?" I'm like,
Well, when we were all leaving, I'm like, what the hell's happening over at the fire station? So communication has never been good in this town. And I mean that. There is not good communication.
But it is now on the town website.
Can we put it on the little sign out
It
there?
was on
been out
the, it
there.
was on the sign for the first
And
one,
it's been out there all.
but not everyone drives by the
I don't
sign.
drive through the center.
And when you drive by at 30, you can't see everything.
And if you catch it at that time, it's not the only thing on the sign. And
Yeah, you're right.
hopefully you're watching the kids cross the street a little bit.
Just stop and read the sign and see how that goes.
That's more important.
So, I mean, there is an effort, but it's difficult. And you
I
gotta
mean,
get those chat people to talk about it. That's when the only time. But then that gets dangerous because
They're talking about plenty right
that's
now.
where the negativity comes out too. So I've seen lots of like arguments against the override on the Watch You chat. So
I sent that to you, Gary. If you send that back to us, that'd be great. And then I'll make sure it goes out tomorrow. As soon as you send it to me, I'll send it out. Get that all out so everyone will have it.
Are you available to help him if he's looking?
Tomorrow afternoon I am, not tomorrow morning. I should be home by noon. So if you need help, scream. But, and then guys, I just want everyone to take a look at it and make sure that we're all in agreement. And then we'll have So when do we want to schedule? Our next Thursday is to go over the warrant articles, so we don't
This
have,
coming Thursday.
yes.
Yes.
So do we want to have another meeting on the following Tuesday to go over this so that we feel more and more confident with these numbers?
I'm good with that.
When do we want it, how soon do we want to be able to get the message out there with the,
Well, I think at this point, it's okay for the departments to know, they've all been told about these cuts, correct? That you brought tonight?
Well, no, not all of them, no, I just put these numbers together, so it's up to them of where these
Okay,
dollars.
so they need to say, we're cutting this much, we're cutting this much, we're cutting this much, and then go and see. Now, here's the other side of things. You start cutting some of those departments and we lose department heads, what are we gonna do with that? We thought about that?
I haven't.
He's hoping to get
Austin.
till, what, Thursday?
But that's why, I know that's why I think, putting the one budget out might not be the, but we have to tell every time any you talk to anybody, there's no other way around it. We need the 2.5 override. And that's every one of us and every taxpayer. So, the Council on Aging has requested, next Tuesday at 11 o'clock. There's some questions from some seniors, if we want to show up and have some conversations with them.
What was the date and time?
It is the 18th at 11 o'clock. I know. I know you can't. I know.
I'm entertaining his brother in California.
And you're in Nantucket.
I will be on vacation. And I'll be on vacation still that night too.
You can call
As well
in.
as me. From the boat. Got some,
What's the date?
no Wi-Fi.
The 18th. It's Tuesday.
If Ted and I aren't gonna be there on that Tuesday night, you're gonna have enough for quorum?
Yep, we'll have quorum if everyone else can make it. Can everybody else make it Tuesday night? Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Tuesday?
Yes.
When's Tom coming back?
We're not 100% sure.
Is Tom coming back?
Yeah, better question. Is he coming back?
2 o'clock.
No, 11.
11.
Okay.
I will try and get to that.
Is that your first day too?
Yeah.
That's. We have really good coffee.
sometimes they have food.
Can you, somebody send me an invitation just so that I
I
remember?
can do that.
Are we gonna publicize, like, are we recording that as well? Is that gonna be recorded and put out on,
Oh, she's gonna do an all-call to the seniors,
I think
but-
it means recorded.
Yeah, well,
and put on to
Cable
our?
doesn't-
We do the ones at the library. Those are recorded and they
Yeah.
are put out on cable and on YouTube. So
Yeah, I
those
saw
are
that.
there.
Well, I mean, I just, like, we're trying to get the message out there, so is it a bad idea to try and see if we can get that recorded to get more information? Just,
Maybe. I don't know what kind of questions they're gonna ask and I just wanna make sure that we're not,
I don't think there's any questions that are gonna come up that you're not gonna be able to handle.
Well, some people might be
I
tough.
wouldn't be so
I
sure.
wouldn't record that one.
I'm sorry, but some of them I'm concerned with because I'm not sure I can answer everyone as clear as.
well, that's okay, you're allowed to
No,
say, I
know.
don't know the answer
No,
to
but
that
there's people, the
question.
people that really want answers, and they're gonna
Yeah.
be very direct about it.
Don't worry,
That's like your
okay.
mother would
I
be.
can cry.
I need to go back to something. We made a motion earlier that we were gonna put this online.
Yes.
And I'm pretty sure a few minutes ago I heard us say that we have no idea when that can happen. Did I hear that correctly?
Well, Gary's got the amounts, but we should make sure that the department heads know where it's coming from before we post
Well,
it.
they'll decide, like we said early on, they'll decide where it's coming from.
Exactly.
I
But
tried to
we
go
should,
5% across the board.
right, but we should know where they're going to take
Yeah,
it from
yeah.
before we post it.
Yep.
Technically speaking, motion was to post as is. It was not with the additional cost.
Right, exactly. It was with the
So,
two, saying, we could post it and say, we're still looking at $218,000
So
worth
we'll
of cuts.
post this as is now, and then if we need to adjust it, which will happen because that is how things go, and that
Right.
is completely within
And it is a
means.
working copy,
Right.
and it's going to change and all of that, so
Yeah.
Highlight that 218,000 additional.
I'll,
What is a realistic time frame to get that those numbers so that can be updated. Can we say that?
Yeah, I gotta get them tomorrow, I gotta contact.
Well, you can plug, I mean, you can plug them in, but can you get Nick and Joe and whoever to give you that information?
I've got Nick, I've got DPW, I don't have council on aging, I don't have library. But that, again, is 5% other than the wages that you guys talked about last week.
So maybe by Thursday night
Town
we can
buildings
update
is
it?
also, I talked to Becky, postage supplies. I've mentioned this to the planner, and I know we've talked about it before, so I've got a few people I've gotta get a hold of, but I can do that in the morning.
Should be able to do it by Thursday, right?
Excuse me?
Should be able to do it by Thursday, possibly, right?
Well, she wants it tomorrow.
No. I'm just talking about the posting of it up on the internet.
Well,
We're gonna go
We're
ahead and
gonna-
post it as is,
Yes.
and then,
We have to have another meeting, so it won't be until Tuesday before we can all have the chance to look at it, because Thursday's meeting is to go over the warrant articles.
Yeah, but can't we post this as is now?
That's what we're gonna do. That's what we're gonna do.
but I think that
I will go home and do all of that and send it out, make sure everyone's in agreement, then I'll send it off to you tomorrow once I get everyone's agreement. Yes, sir.
Hide the columns in PDF.
Just so I can get clarity, if you don't pass the override, you've got to cut 200 and something $1,000?
No.
An additional
Much
An
bigger than
additional
that.
218,000.
All right, but if you
But
pass
there's
the
already-
override, you don't do any cut.
No cuts. No
So
cuts.
what is the increase for the school?
9.55%.
All right, what's that? Is that 150,000?
1.3.
1.3. If I could just make a suggestion, the way I've done it in other towns is you look at the department, say, because we're in a regional school district, you have the school district has a budget that we don't know what it is. All right? I have found from my experience that they are also amiable to some moderation because they don't want to have a hassle. So what I would suggest is, what I've done is I've taken your municipal budget, all right, put it on as articles. I took your school with Bay Path, because you're gonna pay them because it's a minimal anyway. Your debt service, all that stuff is at one. Then you take your school budget, all right, and give them whatever the associated amount that you're increasing your general budget. Let's say you're increasing your general budget 4%. Say you're gonna take their old budget, increase it 4%, and put it on as an article. And then the last article you would put on is the balance of that, because you have to represent whatever they have sent you. All right, you don't have to do it in one article, you can do it in several articles. So you take that last article and put it, whether it's, $900,000 or whatever, to what you're subject to a Proposition 2.5 override. So then when you come and do your override is based on that one item. So if everything goes to hell, all right, you still have a budget, because you've got a school budget, you've got everything, it's at a different level. And if you send it out to them, and again, we used to communicate a lot with the district, all right? If they know that they're willing to, if they say to you, geez, what'll it take for us just to let this thing go smooth? All right, and if they're saying they can cut your budget by $200,000 to make it smooth, all right, you say, well, okay, you cut it 200,000, we'll make up the extra 30,000, whatever, and not do any overrides or doing other things. So that was just a suggestion, is that break the budget up so you have one article, and one article is a 2.5 override for the school budget over and above whatever the percentages of your general increase of the rest of the budget items. And then send it to them. All right, so that they can look at it and say, whoa, do we want to fight this? Do we want to do this? It gives your Rutland reps the opportunity to look at what they're doing. But I don't know if you've had a lot of discussions with them. There's a new superintendent. I've met him, very nice man, very easy to work with. He wants to work with you. But that was just a suggestion.
Thank you. I talked to him today. He's a-
Huh?
I talked to Jim today.
We have high hopes in the future
Yeah,
with the school.
yeah.
But the problem is that ours is over 9%, every other town is just over 4%. And the risk we obviously always have is if all the other towns approve it, then we'll lose.
But our social economic status is increasing, that's why.
Exactly.
and
Our
until we
minimum,
get-
our
until
minimum local
Until our
contribution.
social economic status gets the same as the other 4 towns, we're always gonna be incrementally more.
Exactly.
Right.
And we added 78 new kids.
Yeah.
And you sit there and say, but your taxes is less
than you're paying in Holden. You take my house and stick it in Holden, they pay a hell of a lot more in taxes than I do.
And that's
So-
why we're at the point where we really need an override to
So
bring
if you
everything up.
bitch, you bitch, but you're still getting a pretty good deal.
All I say is come with a positive attitude on Thursday. So we can get through the night.
Well, I think we might have some different ways to do the warrant articles. Because the way we've done them in the past might not work this time.
And we're definitely gonna need some of the warrant articles adjusted a little bit, the way they're written. We know that.
I mean, so that's the thing. I mean, it's just some of the stuff. I think we need to be aware that that might need some change.
Do we wanna, did you send her an email already, the ones that you changed?
No, because they don't change, so we can't say it's contingent.
No.
If the amounts don't change, they're not contingent. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but we have to have them all bound to the 2.5 override. And that's not,
And that's the thing.
they're not,
They're not.
and they're gonna be.
Then we have to change.
And that's how we instructed them to do them, is everything was supposed to be tied to real.
But if we don't, from what was stated is because it stays the same. If it's 15 million with the 2.5 and it's 15 million at the worst case scenario, then it's not contingent on the 2.5 override because it stays at 15 million. Debt service stays the same regardless because we can't
I know
affect
that.
that. So that's the reason, and it makes sense because it isn't contingent, because it's staying the same regardless, unless we choose to try to affect the
Full budget.
operations assessment. And so, I mean, there's a lot of questions still remaining, so that's the thing. I mean, we just have to kind of figure all that out. But putting one budget forward, we can try to restate like Doug said and do it that way. And that way part of it is tied up into the 2.5 override.
And we'll do that on Thursday. Okay.
I think we're done for tonight.
I just have one thing.
Yep.
I just want to be able to remind everybody that, as we've been discussing right along, that the elections are capable of being voted for by the mail. And I went out to the Rutland webpage and I picked up the application to be able to request a mail-in ballot. Very easy to do. And apparently all it needs is a name and signature, date of birth, and then the address, and then you stick it in the mail, and then they're gonna send you a ballot, and you can do it right from your home. So, everybody that's out there that might not have the opportunity to be able to go to the polling station on the 8th of May, please feel free to go out and, again, utilize this resource to be able to get your ballot, and you can send it in.
Was that on the newsletter? So that was in the newsletter, went out to all the seniors.
And I understand that, but I'm just,
No,
you
but
know,
it's good,
one thing
because a
that
lot of them are homebound, so that's good that they have that information.
Right, and the other thing is that we had talked about how do we get that information out more generally, and I didn't know what it was called, Linda used it was a reverse 911, and I think Darren was not in favor of utilizing that resource, but if there is a way, and the individual newsletter is great, and it does get out to a bunch of people, but it won't get out to everybody.
Right, no, it's gonna only go.
I want to clarify my statement. I don't think that's necessarily the best use of that resource. But if the chiefs decide, because they're full-timers and they're way smarter than Darren, then they can do whatever they like. But I don't think it's the best, and I don't know what the chiefs have decided to do, so.
Okay, all I'm saying is that this is a way.
I guess-
So the council on aging has a similar system. Does it only, 60 and over, or 50 and over?
That's all, I mean, that's who's in my database.
You gotta just put your name in, right, and then you get,
Well, no, I get it from Anita, so I have everybody, whether you put your name in directly or not. Anybody
Right,
16
and has a certain age is on this.
Oh,
will
16.
get the robocall.
Um,
Check your name and make sure that.
Yeah, you should be getting that.
That's right, I'm still only
Sure, we get that
58,
for a
I'm
while.
sorry.
Once in a while, if I check somebody in my system for some reason,
I'm
it
sure I'll get
shows
a whole
red on the
blast
phone
of
and
stuff.
I unclick you.
Oh.
However,
I'll get a blast about, hey there. Alright, but
the
So,
Friends of the Library, though, did vote to pay for postage up to $1,000 on that postcard, and there is a community member who is working on that, and it's nicely done, so it's,
awesome.
it has a very
Wonderful.
positive spin on it. And
Wonderful.
we're gonna meet tomorrow, so that should hit every household
Super.
in the town.
Excellent.
Do we need any, before we close the meeting, are we set with people on Sunday? Do we need more people to go? What would you like? What time is it at?
1 o'clock.
Ends here.
It's here. My only thing is that online voter registration for the mail-in, could that be added to the fiscal year 2024 budget and annual town meeting information?
The 24 budget?
You mean the link?
The link,
The link.
Oh, the link. Oh,
So you can click on it and it takes you to
okay.
PDF.
so that you don't have to go to the different places.
And there's a deadline, I think it's the 25th.
Right, but if it's all there, at least it's all with the whole,
Right.
Stuff.
it's with everything that we're talking about, it's all in one spot versus having to go to
It's an excellent.
elections or, you know, all that kind of stuff and going through 12 different places.
So Karen, just as a caution, just to monitor to make sure you don't have a quorum Sunday.
Yes.
Okay.
So who wants to go? Because I'm more than willing to stay home.
No, alright. And that, okay, I understand where you're going with that.
But if we had a quorum, if we had a quorum, just everyone would have to just sit quiet.
Right, well then that's pointless, then don't go, because they wanna hear from the finance committee.
No, but
So
what I'm
that's why I
saying
wanna
is
make sure you
if,
discuss.
if we had 4 of us there on Sunday and only one spoke, then we're not in violation of the open meeting
You
law.
kinda are because you're all
You're
there.
all there.
And once you speak, you're representing that.
I'll take one for the
To be
team.
honest-
I'll be on a boat.
To be honest, if you had 4 there, then somebody go home.
I
I'm just
just-
saying, just monitor it, so.
I just
once
asked
you
if we had
speak-
enough horsepower. If we do, that's all.
Once you have a quorum and you speak, you're a member of that group. You can pretend that you're not, but you are. So if you have a quorum.
So let me know who
somebody
wants to
should
go and
So,
I'll.
so can't you just go as a citizen?
leave. Once you have a quorum,
No.
you're always gonna be a member.
But it's not a finance committee meeting.
Right, because you didn't post it, but you have a quorum of people, so you should not be discussing any finance committee related issues.
And that whole meeting is about that,
Right,
so.
and that's what you're there for. So,
Okay.
I mean, I'm sure she's gonna have a hard time getting 4 people to go to it, I'm just saying.
So make sure there's like
As a
3.
precaution, don't have a quorum.
Who wants to go?
I have a motion to adjourn.
I can be there.
So there you go.
So it was Darren and who else?
Alex.
Alex, thank you. Okay.
Darren's going Sunday?
Any questions, concerns,
Motion to adjourn.
I'll be
issues?
there.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
8:17.
Thank you.